You do this? Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome back to the coolest dog training channel right here on YouTube. I'm Tom Davis, America's Canine Educator. Today, I'm gonna go over an efficient, fast, easy to follow along blueprint to developing the perfect puppy for you. Also, I'm gonna be covering frequently asked questions and the many crucial mistakes puppy owners make when training their puppy. First thing I'm gonna talk about is how to reward your dog. I know that sounds silly because you cut up some hot dogs and some cheese and you give it to them when they do something right. Yes and no. There is some really key components to rewarding your dog properly so you don't actually develop the dog wrong. So I'm gonna work with Missy. She's a 7-month-old chocolate lab puppy, and I'm gonna show you guys how you would want to really start applying food or any positive reinforcement to teaching new behaviors. What I'm gonna show you really quickly is the right way and the theory behind the right way and the wrong way. And when I say that, that's under our training regimen. I don't know all, this isn't the right way or the wrong way, but I'm just gonna tell you what has worked for us in the past over the last 10 to 15 years of experience, and I'll show you what most people do that actually causes negative effects in the future. Come here, sweetie. Good. So again, I wanna take the food and I wanna use it as a reinforcer to reinforce the behavior from hopefully happening again in the future. I do not wanna depend on it or use it as some sort of bribery system. So on a basic command such as sit, I'm gonna ask her to sit. Missy, sit. If she sits, yes, good sit. That's positive reinforcement. I'm adding in two different positive reinforcements here, two different equations. I'm saying yes, good sit in a very pleasant manner with my voice, and I'm also rewarding her here with physical and affection. Really, to be honest, when you walk into a room with your dog, they absolutely love you, and you don't have to add in all the extra stuff that people think they do. And that's why I'm making this video, is because many times people will go to training class with 6 packs of hot dogs, and that actually isn't really teaching the dog to do stuff. It's just feeding the dog, and then hopefully they do what you ask them to do. So I really want to teach you guys how to really teach instead of bribe your dogs into position. So now what I'm going to show you is what commonly most people will do under these circumstances with food and a puppy. Come on, Missy. Good. So what you don't want to do is, if you saw that sit there, the dog was right on my side, right on the left-hand side. And so what a lot of people do is they stop, they get in front of the dog, they put up, sit, yes, and then the dog sits. Good. Okay, break. Now, question is did the dog do what we asked? Sure, but underneath all of that was the actual command. It was, I'm in front of you, okay, that means I'm gonna what, right? So the dog sits. I also have the piece of food in the dog's face. That also means if I get the piece of food out like this, and I do this, and boom, and I take the food away negatively, the dog's going to sit. So ultimately, when you have a piece of food out and you get in front of a dog like this and raise your hand, the dog's gonna sit. But the problem with that is, guys, is underlaid is actually what you want, which is what? The command, the behavior. So when you're here, or you're here, or you're over there, you want the dog to understand the behavior. So doing all of those things are not necessarily really benefiting the dog. It's just luring the dog into position and hopefully they do what you want. It makes you look good, it makes other trainers look good, but that's not our style. When dogs come in, and don't get me wrong, let me just explain a little bit. When I'm luring dogs into position, say like a down, I'll show you what a food lure is. We do it all the time, but eventually this food goes away. And the problem with it is most dogs who learn that way of like, you get paid $100 an hour every single time we start training. Unfortunately, when you're out of food and you forgot it, or your clients go home and they forgot to cut up their hot dogs or buy it, the dog's not gonna know what to do because what they're training with isn't available. So the unfortunate thing that comes from there is then you go ask, and you just ask your dog to do it because you want, and they're like, wait a minute, I get paid a bunch of money for doing this, I'm not gonna do it for free, and it becomes a huge problem. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a dog out and I say, what does your dog know? They say, sit, stay, wait, heel. I say, Fido, sit, and the dog just looks at me. And then they go, oh, wait a minute, and they bring me over this big bag of cookies, and I say, listen, that's fine if your dog will sit for this, but they're not actually capturing the behavior. They're just doing the desired behavior through a repetition of what we think sit should be, and that's not actually the case. When I train a dog, I want them to actually know the behavior. So when I'm far away from the dog, they'll sit, they'll down, they'll come, and I don't need any extra stuff to get that behavior from happening. So again, I'm gonna run that really quick by you when we're talking about food delivery and reward-based systems. And this is applicable to the down, the heel, the sit, the stay, anything. But you have to make sure that the dog is actually doing the behavior without that $100 bill, especially in the foundation imprinting stages. Your dog is a baby and they're learning what currency is. They're learning what work means. And if you're just paying them through, again, go out and ask your dog to sit and not the context that you've taught them to sit in a training form with food. And then you'll actually know if the dog knows the command. So I want to show you really quick the right and the wrong way. Again, really quick. Here we go. I get the dog out. Normally when I'm out walking and I ask the dog to sit, it's going to be on my left side, right into his sit next to me. Missy, sit. Yes, good sit. Good sit. Good girl. Good, heel. And then I can show you again how to deliver that food process if that's what you choose to do. Missy, sit. A little cattywampus, but that's okay. Yes, good sit. Good girl. Now I can use the food lure to even tighten that up. And this is how you'd want to do that. So I'm going to bring the dog out. So I'm luring the dog into the position I want. Good. And then sit. Removing the food negatively. Swings. Now that behavior was taught from what we talked about before. Again, we just took this dog in. So you just saw right before your eyes exactly what I was talking about. This dog was taught how to sit in front of you with a piece of food with it up like this, because I said that I told the dog to sit and she immediately swung out in front of me and said, well, you got to pay me first. And that's really going to be a problem in the future, especially if you do any type of competitive obedience or just when you're out for a walk with your dog, you don't want him sliding in front of you. So that's a problem, and you just saw why. Sit. Yes, good sit. Then they get food, and then periodically throughout the session, break. They may get it, they may not, but you have to make sure that your dog is not really working for the food and is working for you, and the food's just extra, but they're getting the food through you. So one important thing I try to tell my clients is if your dog is already depending on food or is already working for food in a really enthusiastic way, I do not want to decompress any of that. I want to keep the enthusiasm. I want the dog to work. A lot of the puppies that I work with are always paid through lots of high value rewards through me as a person, as verbal cues and etc. So one thing that you can do is if your dog is working for food, or if you continue to work with food, and there's nothing wrong with that, I encourage people to work with your dog in a way that they're really encouraged to work and they really want to continue to work in a very less stress or no stress way. So what you want to do is just sit. Yes, you may add food there, and then heel, and then you put the dog back into a heel. Missy, sit. Good, good sit. So just using positive reinforcement verbally, and maybe even good sit, heel, and then adding in the food or the cherry on top. Okay, break every other time or every third time or every fourth time, just to enforce the behavior to say, hey, good job, but making sure that the dog will do it without the currency, because at that point, you're actually not teaching the dog anything. So ask yourself, if you're working with a trainer or you're training by yourself, ask yourself this: will your dog actually do the behavior if you don't have the reinforcement involved? If you don't if you do not have the thing that's going to encourage the dog from happening or encourage the behavior from happening with the dog, will your dog actually do it if you just say, hey Fido, sit, hey Fido, down, hey Fido, focus, hey Fido, leave it? Will they do it without your enforcer? And if they do, great, your dog knows the behavior. And if they don't and they won't, then that means you need to restructure some things. I hope this video is helpful. I truly do. If you liked it, like the video up here, subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave a comment below, ask me your dog training questions about this puppy video that we've done on how to start developing reward-based systems with your dog. And then of course, I touch base on the do's and the don'ts and the right way and potentially the wrong way to do things. Thank you guys so very much. I will talk to you next time. Peace.